Hello, everybody, and welcome to Pizza Cultura, where we are going to be talking about Michelin stars and why there are no Michelin-starred pizzerias on the globe. I continue to wonder when a year of Michelin-starred pizzerias are going to pop up, but so far, nothing. And it's really interesting because there are over 381 restaurants in Italy, if we just talk about Italy, and Campania is the second largest region, yet there are no pizzerias awarded a Michelin star. They have been awarded bibs, mostly in the US, but no Michelin stars. So we're here to talk about Michelin star pizzerias, awards again, and how we feel about this whole bypass of pizzerias, which other street foods have received Michelin stars in other countries in Asia, and both in Bangkok and in Singapore. So pizza is a perfect street food. Why not? So Tom, I'm going to start off with you and see what you think about this whole quandary of Michelin stars and no pizzerias.
I think it is an absolute travesty. No, I mean honestly, I don't
It is.
really. Yeah, no, no. I mean, I'm not saying that just to be a sarcastic git, but yeah, I can't profess to really understand the kind of judging methodology or what goes into it, and I also I'm not a bib is like a consolation-y prize, or how does that
So
work?
bib, so basically there are multiple tiers. Bib's Gourmand just recently started, I think in like 2016. And so Bib Gourmand is supposed to be the family-friendly, lower price places. So you'll see
Okay,
burger joints in there, you'll see some pizza joints in there. You'll see things that they consider
more
not
kind of
quite
casual.
casual restaurant. Yeah,
Okay.
exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I can't really. Okay, taking a step back, I guess traditionally pizza has been considered casually fast, dare I say, junk food, which maybe positions it as something that isn't immediately suitable for Michelin star. But then you've had fast casual restaurants like Tim Ho Wan in Hong Kong. That's definitely not fancy schmancy, but it has had a Michelin star, rightly so. So yeah, I don't know why. It seems a bit unfair, especially in light of the recent kind of leveling up that pizza has gone through over the past few decades.
Peter, what do you think? What's your standing on Michelin, bib, and rankings for pizzerias?
I really haven't thought about it too much before we discuss this topic, so I can't honestly say that it's a a God-shaped hole in my heart that I'm trying to fill with something. But it is sort of an interesting thing to think about. Like, I mean, to me, it's just sort of reflects the historical lack of status that pizza and
Hmm.
pizzerias have held throughout the years. Evelyn Sloman gave me a term that I hadn't heard before, but she picked it up when she was talking to the old timers, and that was that they would consider pizza to be considered to be pig food, which
Hmm.
is really an old world, really sticking it right
Mm.
in the gut as to the status of foods. And of course, there's this whole Northern Italian and Southern Italian thing
So
too that plays into
Peter,
it.
just to interject, when you say they considered it pig food, who is the they, and what is the context?
This is Evelyn Sloman researching her book probably in the late 70s, early 80s in New
Okay.
York City to Italian American communities. And she was involved in the food world big time at that time. So she would have been dealing with sort of the intersection with French cuisine, Italian cuisine, and that sort of world.
Okay.
So
Okay.
she picked up that term, and yeah, I don't know who actually said the term, but it would.
But I mean, like ostensibly, it's that kind of French chef brigade crew who would have been looking down their noses at pizza, is kind of what she's saying.
I don't know that, but that would be at the top
Yeah.
of my
Okay.
suspect, the list, who I would have been thinking would probably have said that. So yeah. And also on that bib, I looked it up real quick, and I think it started in 1997. So that is, a separate, as I understand it, a separate category that they have that is more catered to the value conscious. I think it's got a price sort of ceiling on it. So that does take some of the staying out of the lack of stars that you can get a bib to. So um, I don't know. To me, it's just sort of uh, it's just sort of historically reflects the where we've been in the past, and they've not quite caught up yet with the way people think probably today.
I
Well,
mean,
Nate,
Stephanie, I was going to say, Stephanie, if you had one place, or maybe this is putting you in the spot, there's a
no.
particular place in Campania that is immediately what comes to mind when I think of a pizza place that is probably deserving of a Michelin star. Not to say that others aren't, but that screams, white tablecloth, high end pizza. So
Sommelier, wine
exactly,
program, all of
exactly,
the things
exactly.
that Michelin is supposed to check off when they're visiting. And,
Hmm.
Pepe and Grani, that has been, since we started working on pizza, we are continuously surprised every year that with even with the amount of press he's received, of the accolades that he's received from other countries as well as his own country, Italy, that he still doesn't warrant a Michelin star. And, he's got not that, not that he needs it, but
Hmm.
I think that it's an accolade that he well deserves because
Exactly. Yeah.
he's,
It's not about
you know,
need. It's the
no, and
recognition
it's
that he's earned.
right. And it is, it is 100% attached to the restaurant, not to the chef, for all of these. So if the chef leaves, they don't take the Michelin star with them. The restaurant earns it. So I think it's not only Franco Pepe, but his team, all of the people that have been involved in elevating that experience, I think deserve a Michelin star. I think that, a lot of places it helps bring more people in. It gives you a standard to maintain, which I think is also very interesting because, Michelin, there are a lot of restaurants that earn a star and then have a star taken away because again it's the restaurant, not the chef, so the people that are there have to keep it to the level of what Michelin is looking at. But yeah, I think it's interesting that from an Italian standpoint, even the what I'm interested too is why isn't this such a deal for the Italian community too? Why aren't they saying, why don't we have a pizzeria as a Michelin star restaurant? Um, Tom?
Can I kind of play the useful idiot for a second?
Mhm.
How what's the process for getting a Michelin star? Does one have to volunteer? Like, does one have to fill out a form and apply, or are you nominated,
No,
or is it just word of mouth?
it's diners coming in. There's a team of surveyors every year that go in individually to look at the restaurant. They're not supposed to really take on the atmospheric um, piece of the restaurant, but all of the other things that they're supposed to check boxes and review, especially the food, that
So
obviously is number
it,
one.
so it's incumbent upon the actual Michelin people to go and see if you kick the tires, kind of to see if these places
Exactly.
deserve it. Okay.
So it's a consortium basically of food groups throughout the country where they're involved in Michelin star rating. So they go, and then they're supposed to go numerous times throughout the year. So let's say Peter was part of the Michelin team, he would go to Pepe and Grane, do a review, come back, report into the consortium, and then other people would go and review it as well. And that is how the new places are graded and brought on board. And then it's also the standing of the existing places that they will continue to go to every year to make sure that they're still up to snuff. And that's what the rules and guidelines say. Now, whether or not that's what they're doing is another thing, but that is exactly what they're supposed to do. So every year they bring on new. I think this year there were 38 new places added just in Italy, and again, not a pizzeria in sight. So
And
it's interesting,
the
and to mention too, in the Michelin Guide for pizzeria, it does not include Pepe and Grande, which I think is even more shocking. That it's not even listed. The listings, which I tend to think are probably paid listings, because you have Sorbillo in there, you have Da Michele in there, then you have Notizia, Enzo Cocha's place, Concertina, Tresante Concertina. You have Diatilio. I think there was only one listed in the Naples area that I hadn't been, and Italy and Veneto. The rest were all in Campania, but none of them even have a bib, which I think is also interesting that they aren't even awarded, for the low end. The third tier, which is relatively new, is the organics, which is the green. I think it's
Star.
Green Star. So, but there isn't none of the pizzerias are qualified in that I read. So
I mean,
yeah, it's just interesting.
when it comes to Pepe and Grande in particular, is there something political going on behind the scenes, or is it just, who knows?
I don't know, because it's interesting when I looked at the Japan listings as well. The ones that are the most famous in Tokyo, like Serenkan, and they're not listed either. So the ones that are listed in Japan, I also question as, not, I wouldn't say at the top of the game, but some of them are in hotels, so they're easily more accessible. But it's questionable even from the Japan side too, not just Italy, knowing the places that they have listed, and those have received bibs. 9 of them have received bibs.
Oh, okay.
And then
I mean,
there's 18 in the US.
I was going to ask, kind of as a joke, whether it's a kind of remnant of the old French, Franco-Italian low mutual hatred, but seemingly not if they're Michelin-starring restaurants and it's just pizza places that are getting the cold shoulder.
That I think is the interesting piece. That's why I compare with Japan, because basically Italy is, France, Italy, and Japan are the top 3, and they have been in the Michelin Guide for years. I can't think of when they haven't been, at least when I've been doing my research for the last 5 years. So it's interesting that for some reason a pizzeria can't cut it yet. But it's exclusively everywhere. Like, it's not just in Italy. It's a pizzeria in all locations outside of, in the world.
I mean, one thing that I wanted to ask, and I'm a little in doubt even in reading the material over, does it have to have an actual 3-course meal set, or is that just the price that they're comparing it to? I wasn't exactly sure about that.
No, because you have food stalls that have Michelin stars. There's the one that recently lost their star for not continuing on the quality. But you have a amazing woman in Bangkok making one dish, which is a crab omelet on a hot pot, basically, because I've watched her make it. And so she doesn't have anything else but serving utensils to hand off to the person that's buying the crab omelet in Bangkok. So it's very, very
How many
small.
stars did she get?
She has 1 star, and it's been consistent. So
yeah,
and she's 77 years old, which I think is amazing. So they do go outside of what I would consider a 3-star Michelin parameter, which is the quality of being surrounded by what you would expect for a higher level dining experience, and that's the kind of the 3 stars. But 1 star, I feel like if I was on this board and I was touring and I've gone to Pepe and Grande multiple times, every time I would say, why are they not awarded a Michelin star?
I mean, it does speak to the kind of persistent, like, general disdain that a lot of that high-end haute cuisine crew have for pizza. Like, it does seem that even though the rest of the world has cottoned on to the fact that, you know, pizza can be as varied as any other cuisine, you know, from the downright awful to the mind-blowingly spectacular. I mean, there was, I don't know if you guys saw this, but there was a recent kind of guffaw in London about, or in the UK, about some Michelin-starred chef, Marcus Waring, I don't know how to pronounce his name. When he was asked what he thinks the best pizza in the UK was, he said Pizza Express. And for those who are lucky enough not to have ever eaten that, Pizza Express is kind of the Olive Garden of pizza.
Yeah.
It's not inedibly
It's not
bad, but
bad.
it's
No.
it's not, you know, like growing up in the 90s, that was, oh, you know, we're going for Pizza Express, it's fancy, but it's not compared to what there are on offer now in London. It's bottom of the barrel. So I wonder if it's just that they, you know, that there's, you know, latent snobbery, and that's.
I definitely feel like there's an educational barrier where, I mean, for example, Franco Pepe, I've gone to the cheesemakers that are within a very small circumference of his restaurant. I've been to the pork places with the Caserta black pig. I've gone to the vegetables, you know, the farms that are very close by. So he's curating a menu of things that are local ingredients that are top quality. And so it's interesting because it can't be ingredient based. Like a chef, he prepares things very much table side. You know, everything is done and checked and spot checked before it comes out of the kitchen, just like you would see at a Michelin star restaurant in Italy. So I think that's the very unique thing is maybe it's, I don't know. One of the questions I have is it something that, you know, the Italian diversity, they just can't find a way to push pizza ahead, where it's saying that, like, can they say one place deserves a star? Is that something that the Italian populace voting, let's say, would be able to do? Because I've seen it before in these other contests where they, you know, pick two for the number one, and then you're like, well, okay, that's a tie again, like 50 top. So I don't know. It's an interesting dichotomy, I think, when you look at food in general and
I
what
mean,
is better than others.
I wonder if geopolitics, or, you know, national politics does play into it, because obviously it's much, you know, it's much less acute and much, you know, less serious these days, but there is still a big north-south divide in Italy, and I wonder whether that would somehow be perceived as an issue of contention that would pit, you know, Milan against Naples, you know, who knows. But yeah,
But then I
it
find
does.
it's interesting though, because if you look at the guide, most of the places that they are recommending are in Campania. They only have one place, Itili in Veneto, that's actually listed on their site under pizzeria. So it's kind of this weird mix of, you know, why I want to
Yeah,
understand the why.
Yeah, I
I
mean,
think we. Oh, go ahead,
just
Peter.
for
Sorry.
me, I think the why is the most intriguing part of it. Like, what is the subtext to this whole thing? Because I wonder, and just to, like, what's the importance if they don't do it? Like, so what did we really lose? I mean, 20 or 30 years ago, you could make an argument, I think strongly, that there's an informational content to the stars that they give, that actually helps. But with the proliferation of reviews and videos and all that's online, I really wouldn't be motivated to go to Michelin to find out, you know, who's got a star, and that really wouldn't change my view, pro or con, to a specific pizzeria. Um, so I wonder, does it really matter? One, and then two, if it does matter to the degree it does, isn't that a market opportunity for someone to come in and do their own pizza service that they're not doing apparently?
I
Thoughts?
know, I
Yeah.
know when we were in Italy the second time around, we did ask quite a few pizzolos what their thoughts were on Michelin and why there was no Michelin pizzeria. And they also, and some of the top pizza makers, they were also like, we don't understand why there isn't a pizzeria in this category.
Is there any dialogue back and forth between them? Like, has anyone said, "Oi, guys, what the hell's
That's
going on? Why?"
not that I'm aware of. And I think that's the interesting piece is like, you know, is it the education factor of some of the pizzolos that are in Campania that are old school that I would say that they're not willing to go that extra step to push further, even though they were right on board with the UNESCO World Heritage thing, but that, maybe that's a different animal that they felt more comfortable pushing.
I mean, to Peter's point, like, that there isn't a shortage, and we've spoken about this in the past, but there isn't a shortage of pizza lists, pizza rankings, pizza recommendations, pizza awards. So I don't think this is the case, but I wonder whether Michelin just think, well, we'd be completely superfluous to requirements because there are so many other rankings for these things. But then
But then
still
there's burgers
there's the
too.
fact, yeah, and there's still the fact that, well, regardless of the plethora of lists out there, there's still the fact that these places deserve the recognition, and it is the kind of gold standard of awards for food. So yeah, I don't know.
I think they're going the way of the Oscars and the Emmys, that people aren't going to care at all in a few years. Like, they're just going to say, "Oh, really? That's great." But
as long as the red carpet time when you can see all the outfits is still happening, I'm okay with it. I don't need to watch any of the actual work programs. I just want to see what people are wearing.
Oh no, I like the speeches. I like to see people be as uncomfortable as possible.
Yeah, I replay them the next day, just over and over again. My favorites.
Oh no, the only one that I cared about was Ricky Gervais' speech. That was the only one that I cared about. That was perfect. So
yeah, he knocked that out of the park. But no, I mean, just to, like, I'm curious whether either of you two would base your choice of pizza place. Like, if you're going to New York City, if there were Michelin pizzerias, would that be something you'd look to, or would it be more, word of mouth, social media, that, the kind of eye test, like, you scroll through Instagram, see a pizza, okay, that looks like the kind of thing I want to eat? Because I can't imagine relying on Michelin to pick a pizza place, even if they did rank.
I mean, to me, and this is perhaps unfair, but the immediate reaction when I hear a star is, I think, white tablecloth. And that's probably wrong to say, but that's what their brand is, sort of. And so I wouldn't say I would shy away from it, but it would be maybe a slight negative, actually. But I would talk to my friends first and see if they've been to the city, and I trust them. So I don't think I trust the reviewers. I mean, I would consider it, but it's not huge to me at all. It really isn't.
I forgot to look at the circulation for Michelin guides, but it's pretty extensive. Like, as far as the guides, and the Italian guide is in Italian, so it's mostly for your consumption for other Italians. There are some guides that are translated into English or other languages, but when we were pulling together data points for Modernist Pizza, it was something that we looked at. And because we were looking at how many places were listed in multiple places, that was a really interesting point to see, like, who made the Michelin guide, and then who made the Gambero Rosso guide, and then who was in the US list. And, we were looking at it more from a lot of data points, and then boiling down what we thought was an expectation range. But we did go to quite a few of the Michelin star restaurants while we were there too, to see the difference of quality and wait staff, wine menus, just the things that you could see. And a lot of them didn't have any difference to what we experienced at Franco Pepe, or a few others where they also have curated drink or wine lists, and are very nice interiors and, all of that. So yeah, I just find it really interesting personally that it hasn't been awarded. And yes, like things going to the Oscars and the Emmys, they are behind the times, I would say, in diversity too. There are very few women. Dominique Crin is pretty much the one that they continue to award a 3-star Michelin, and she's one of the very few. I can't remember the last count, but I'll have to look it up. But there are very few women as well in the Michelin Guide. So I think they're behind the times in many things. But why they decide not to handle pizza as a category, I think is really interesting, since it's the largest global food.
Yeah.
That it's an interesting thing.
We should start a petition.
That's why I'm having this conversation, because I really
you're getting the ball rolling. Okay.
It is one of those things that I just continue to think about every year when they put the Michelin guides out. I check rankings for women, and then and diverse countries. Like there's only one, I think, Michelin star chef in Mexico now. Also, like there's amazing food in Mexico, amazing restaurants that should be awarded, and that should have the rankings that they deserve.
Apparently,
so
Australia doesn't have any. Or does it? That
Mm,
might be a joke. I don't know. I'm just
it
Googling.
did, but I don't know. I didn't
Okay.
do a whole dive. I was really just focusing my time on Italy and pizza for this call. But yeah, I think there's a lot of change that needs to happen, Peter, and hopefully it'll go in the right direction,
Hopefully.
Yeah.
just
It's
like everything
directional.
else.
They can go up or down.
It could. It could.
50-50.
And they could also see their sales of guides go further and further down too. So, I think that's the piece of the puzzle that they need to maintain is who are their consumers, and if their consumers are changing, then
They need to move
get
with
with
the times. Yeah.
Well, we are almost at a wrap time. So thank you so much, Peter and Tom. We've had a great time chatting about Michelin Star. And Tom is going to be our featured speaker next week, topic picker. And so I'm going to turn the baton over to Tom.
Yeah, which has not yet been picked. We might just revisit an old favorite and chat about whether sauce on top is better than cheese on top, but kind of joking, although not necessarily. So
I saw the eye roll, Peter.
Well, it's definitely one. It's
definitely it's got legs. That topic can go on and on and on. But
there is an answer. I'm saying there is a definitive answer that is correct.
Okay, Peter's throwing down the challenge.
Wow.
There. That might be signed and sealed.
I don't think we can stop now.
Yeah, no, I think it has to be done. It has to be done. Okay, guys, that just about does it. If you've enjoyed the show, give us a thumbs up and subscribe. The show is also available wherever you get your podcasts, and you can find us on TikTok and Instagram under the handle I Need Pizza Club. Okay, cool. Thanks, guys. Have a good weekend. Nice chatting to you.
Ciao.
Ciao.